Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Ohio Guys here. I'm your host, Christian Ocampo, and today I'm being joined by Deborah Crane. How you doing, Deborah?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy we were finally able to get together.
I know, right? It's been a while, but we made it happen.
We made it happen.
So, we have a few questions we'd like to ask you. First of all, what's it like working in the industry today?
Wow, that's a multifaceted question. I think what it's like working in the industry today is the industry is ever changing. Something that you knew how to do or you were certain, you know, someone said to you 5 years ago, this is how you do this. That's not how you do it anymore. Um, so, I mean, with all the latest improvements in technology, and if you're doing gaming, there's more platforms. If you're in anime, there's more anime being made. It seems than maybe not than ever before, but certainly for a few years. And if you're in animation or film, there's so many different ways now to bring your creative arts to life. So it's just kind of both an exciting and scary time to be in the industry.
Well said. So, during your time in the industry, what is your favorite show you have worked on?
Oh, that's a hard one.
I
It's
know,
it's hard to
always.
pick between your children.
Yeah.
Um, I have to say though, I really have a sentimental favorite of Sailor Moon Crystal. Um, I was so scared when I got that project actually, because on the one hand I wanted it. I was really, really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I got Sailor Moon Crystal. They asked me to write Sailor Moon Crystal. Are you kidding me? But then about 5 minutes after that, I was like, oh my gosh, when it hit me about the legacy that I would be writing, and everything uh, that comes, the fandom and everything built in, and I was just I. It started to weigh on it, and I was like, how do I do this? How do I handle it without cracking under the pressure? And how do I do it in a way that really honors and pays homage and respects the fandom? And so there's more of that, more so than I think any other non-original thing that I have worked on. Um, I put a lot of my soul, myself, my blood, sweat, and tears into Crystal. I really, really laid it all on the line as a writer, and pushed myself and pushed the scripts and pushed where I could make the characters go. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that. And so yeah, it's been really, really nice.
Excellent. Another show you worked on, what was it like working on Gargantua of the Verduous uh, planet? Yeah, it's hard, yeah, to say.
Gargantua was my first show, and I've been really, really lucky actually. The man have really, really great producers to work with. For people who do not know writing and don't necessarily know the industry, the producers are usually the ones that they go through your scripts or they listen to your voice acting performance or whatever, and they say, no, do it differently, no, do it wrong, no. They're the ones who give you notes. And there are horror stories all over Hollywood of people who give you notes that don't make any sense or aren't constructive, or they're people who are just like, they're trying to keep their jobs, but they're not, but they don't really know what they're doing. But on both Gargantia and Sailor Moon Crystal, I had two really good producers that, you know, were really willing to work with me. And I don't mean to toot my own horn, but like they seemed to recognize that I was a good writer and that I was really dedicated to this and that I wanted to give the shows the best I possibly could. And so they really respected that. And the thing about Gargantia was it was just I had fun with some of the parts of it. Because it was one of the shows. sometimes with Sailor Moon, like, I knew who the cast was going to be ahead of time. Because, Classic had already been being redubbed and was announced, but most of the time I don't know who I'm writing for. And so I just sort of have to pick, character traits or pick something else. And one of the lead characters in Gargantua, this guy named Pinion, I wrote, he reminded me of a particular voice actor who actually didn't end up getting the role. But Patrick Seitz, who did get the role, did a perfect impression of the voice actor that I actually had in mind when writing it. I mean, so spot on. And when I finally heard that performance, I was just like, you got it. I didn't even, and it wasn't as if I put like in the little notes column or a note on the script that said, no, we're doing an impression of this guy. It was that, when you're able to put things into the characters that kind of jump off the page a little bit and that the actors are really able to chew on. Also, I mean, it's a little maudlin, but there's also a scene in that show where a character named Bridget, she gives a eulogy. And that ended up being played by a friend of mine, a wonderfully talented actress named Laura Post. And she really, I mean, it was a eulogy. I had a hard time writing that scene. I kind of got a little bit choked up. And when I heard her do it, she too really just laid her acting chops, out, and you could hear the emotion in it. And so she took where I had and pushed it even further, and that was just. Julianne Taylor also did that in the same show, playing a character named Bellows. And I had a lot of fun writing those characters, and it was really gratifying to hear the actors take that and really work with it and make it something, make it their own and make it really come to life.
Nice. Spot on.
Thank you.
Another show you worked on was like working on Bayonetta.
Bayonetta Bloody Fate. Now that was that wasn't a show, that was a movie special. And that had its own unique challenges. So first and foremost, at that time, the first game, the Bayonetta video game, existed. Now, I'm learning now. I have a PS4 now. But at that time, I hadn't worked for very long, and so I couldn't afford one, and so I'd never played the game. But my clients were very insistent that I had to use as many of the original game lines and the game story as possible. And so I spent hours and hours and hours actually watching Let's Plays of Bayonetta to learn the script, to learn the script, and to learn the characters as they were in the game, and to try and use as many of the original game lines as possible, because one of the purposes of the movie was that they were bringing out Bayonetta 2 only on the Wii U, and so the movie was to help people who had, played Bayonetta 1 on its other platforms, come over to the Wii U without necessarily, and then of course they released Bayonetta 1 on the Wii U as well. But there's the existence, so like Sailor Moon, there was already the existence of a property that I had to be loyal to. But what was even more, so the process of localization is when I'm going through and seeing if the line matches lip flap. I actually have to talk it out. Now, because Bayonetta as well, I should say, had also been cast and had established actors in the roles, in order to get some of the timing right and to make sure the mouth movements worked, I had to kind of imitate their voices. And I am not, and if you know anything about that franchise, particularly, Dave Fennoy plays this, big African-American dude called Rodan, and there's, this New Yorker undertaker named Enzo. I mean, the British girls were very easy to imitate. I was able to do Bayonetta, fairly well.
Oh, nice.
I'm not saying I'm a voice actor. I'm just saying that was what I did. But yeah, me attempting to sort of imitate Fenoy to try and get the timing right was just the funniest thing ever. Like, I mean, it's like, hey, Bayonetta, how you? Yeah, I mean, I can't even do it anymore. I'm too embarrassed. So, funny story though. When I was writing that, so I was in the middle of writing it, and one of the scenes in the beginning, Bayonetta is having this huge fight with all these angels that are actually monsters in a church, and the church starts to fall down around her. This fight is so violent and intense. In the middle of writing this fight, I live in California, we had an earthquake. And I didn't realize that at first. At first I thought, wow, I'm really into my work right now. I could swear my apartment is shaking. And then I realized it was. And what was funny is this was a period of time back in 2014. The more I kept writing on the movie, the more there were earthquakes. I mean, nothing huge, but earthquakes kept happening. And I was like, when I finally finished, I was like, okay, good. The earthquakes can stop now. I mean, I'm superstitious that way, but yeah, those were some fun things about writing Bayonetta.
I liked it though with trivia.
Pardon?
I liked it though with trivia. Another show, which now we've come to the itchy question.
Yes.
What was it like working on Ikki Tosin?
Well, I mean, again, there were already 2 seasons of Ikki Tosin. It's what I call a legacy show. So I worked on Ikki Tosin Great Guardians and Ikki Tosin Extreme Executor. And I know a lot of people don't like to talk about, if they worked on an Eki or a fan service show. But for me, I kind of own it. Because, again, like I told you before, you work in the industry no matter what you work on. You have producers, you have bosses, you have clients, you have people giving you notes. And what was really fun working on Ikki Tosin was, because it was a fan service show, I was pretty much allowed to do whatever I wanted. And I think, yeah, I think I got one note the whole time, and that was from my boss. It's like, all right, I understand you get that you're writing a fan service show, but you can call the cat a cat, okay? And so I was like, okay. But yeah, and I mean, there was some stuff that was in there. I mean, I literally, oh gosh, one of my favorite things. So there was a punk character in Ikki Tosin, and there was a joke. He puts on this magic necklace, and it's supposed to turn him into a lewd, like, American person, even though he's a proper monk. And in the Japanese, the joke was he puts on the necklace and starts speaking English. Well, I don't know how to speak Japanese, so I couldn't reverse that. And when you work on things, you sign non-disclosure agreements, so it's not like you could go and ask anybody, how do I get this guy speaking Japanese? Plus, I didn't think the American voice actor might know how to do that. So I'm like, well, what do I do? What do I do? And I kind of turned him into a really, really bad impersonation of a rapper. And I wrote in the notes column of the show, it's like, I'm going to hell, you don't have to tell me I'm going to hell, like every single line. And about 8 weeks later, I get a text from a voice actor friend of mine who says to me, why are you going to hell? And I was like, oh, Kyle, you're playing this guy! So, yeah, I mean, that's another actually fun thing that I do that I don't do often because different clients don't always like it. But sometimes, if I do know that a friend of mine is working on a show, or I think someone might be, I'll leave a little note in the notes column that's almost like a message in a bottle. for voice actor friends for someone, and that way sometimes, and I just, whenever they get around to recording it, sometimes I get a text message or a phone call or a selfie or something like that saying, "Why did you put this in here for me?" But yeah, I mean, there was just an unprecedented amount of freedom and creative freedom, which is weird to talk about because when you're localizing, you have to work with the existing translation and for the most part the existing story, and then of course the animation's already done. So it's very much like writing in a box. In fact, you're literally writing in a box because the way the scripts are laid out, you're writing in little Excel tables.
Okay.
But yeah, that show was just, I was able to be silly or lewd or, almost every time I thought, someone's going to stop me. Someone's going to have a problem with this line. No, they really didn't. So,
Whew. All right. So moving on from the itchy stuff, what was that working on Harmony?
wow. You want to talk about 180 degrees. Harmony was my most difficult write to date. Really, just it's a very, very dark movie to begin with. I mean, it's a detective story. At the heart of everything, there's a murder mystery. And I don't know if I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to give spoilers. I like people to write it, but actually, I don't want to get anything into politics or anything like that. But the Harmony is based on a book by a now deceased author named Project Ito, and that book won the Philip K. Dick Award in science fiction literature. And it's an amazing, amazing book. And when I got that assignment from Funimation, my boss actually gave me the book and said, "Read this." And it's hard to, what I'm about to say is hard to explain. So, but hopefully some of your viewers are familiar with Sword Art Online and how, the creator of that world kind of uploaded his brain into the SAO world. Reading Harmony, now that Project Ito, the man, is deceased, he died, it very much feels like he is walking around and there's a big piece of him still in his work, still in that book. It was something that struck me and was really profound. He was literally writing the book and editing it as he lay dying, and you can feel his sadness, his anger. He's sort of yelling at the country of Japan, "Save me! Why can't you save me?" And so when I read that and I found that, and then I was also given the translation, I sort of said to my bosses at Funimation, do you mind terribly if I work more from the book translation than from the translation I was given? Because this was a literary translation, and I felt like it captured so much more of Ito's spirit and his intent. So they let me, and I did. And I hope what I set out to do was, oh, you have a cute kitty. Sorry.
That's fine.
But what I set out to do when I was writing Harmony, once I found him in his own book and found his vision, I tried to do whatever I could to transfer that to the screen version. So that people who are going to the movies and who are experiencing that could experience him and his vision and his feelings and his emotions. especially, I think the cast did an amazing job, and very rarely, it's not a bad thing, but very rarely does a project of mine turn out, exactly how I imagined it in my head, or exactly, because you have actors and different variables, but um, the last act of that movie, the climax, um, really exactly how it was in the book, exactly how I had envisioned it in my head as I was working on it, and the the actresses did an amazing job, and I finished was a brutal write. I wrote that movie very quickly for a movie, and when I finished, I was so spent I started sobbing.
Mm.
So, in fact, because I was scared, actually, at that point, I was kind of nervous because I was told I was going to have notes. Um, and then I didn't end up having notes. Funimation was very kind to me. They were like, nope. Well, because there's a couple of scenes in it that there were one or two scenes in there that I was just they're very difficult to watch, and I put a note by them. I'm like, look, if this doesn't work for you, then the actor and the director are going to have to fix it in the booth. I can't watch this one more time. So luckily it worked. But yeah, one of those scenes though, some of my friends, they came with me to see it, the movie premiere in theater, said they were mad at me. Why didn't you warn us this was coming? Sorry. So, but yeah, so I feel like my career as a whole, I've been very lucky because everything that I've worked on, I have found some connection to. A lot of them are in very different ways. I didn't work on a lot of it, but I also worked on a show, one of the Netflix originals called Glitter Force. And again, if Sailor Moon Crystal is girl power, Glitter Force is like if a pixie stick threw up. But I had a lot of fun on that as well because I was just, oh my gosh, 9-year-old me is so happy working on this right now. So it's just, and I get to that's one of the reasons I love working in anime so much, is because I get to work on such a different variety of things. I get to work on, adult things and also adult things. I get to work on fun stuff for kids. I get to work on nostalgic stuff, love story shows, all, CGI animated shows, hand-drawn animated shows, so. See, this is what happens when you get a writer talking.
Yeah.
You don't shut up.
No, that's fine. No, I'm actually learning and listening to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So now it's time for a funny question. So
okay.
All right. So, if you can live in any anime world that you have worked on, which one and why?
Yeah, that is such a hard question.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, even though at points of the show it got really weird and like taken over by a bunch of cultists, I kind of think I'd love to live in the world of Gargantua on the Verdurous planet, because the story of that is basically Earth has turned into water world. And so everybody lives on these floating ships or these floating fleets and barges. And so there's a real sense of community, that you know your neighbors and everyone comes in and everyone pitches in together. And I think that's also kind of a metaphor for my career, or for working in the industry. Because very, very quickly, once you start to work in the industry, you realize no man is an island. It doesn't matter how talented you are, or even how talented the people you're working with are. Everybody is a link in the chain. Everybody is just one piece of the puzzle. Before I get the scripts, before I get, someone else has done the translating for me. And before someone else did the translating, there had to be someone that licensed it. And then, of course, there was, everyone in Japan or China or Korea or Russia or France or Italy or whoever was the source material, whoever created the show. And then once I'm done, adapting the script, well, then I'm, again, a link in the chain. I pass it off to the directors and to the actors, and then they do with it, and then the engineers do their amazing mix thing, and then it gets rendered and distributed, and, I mean, it's... To say it takes a village is completely the understatement. I recently, I didn't work on the new Sailor Moon R movie that just came out, but as part of the Sailor Moon family, I was invited to go to the premiere, which was really awesome. I'll plug it. If you guys go see the Sailor Moon R movie, it's really great. But also, Viz, they really know how to throw a premiere. It was just, they had a wonderful photo booth and this confetti bomb that surprised everybody. I was sitting behind the cast and everyone was practically jumping out of their seats. They were so excited. And just to literally see the village that makes Sailor Moon possible, it's just mind-boggling. Like, just how many people put their hearts and souls and their love into that, so.
All right, so is there anything else coming out that you can talk about, or anything you want to plug in at this time?
I have 2 projects that I currently can't talk about.
NDAs.
Just 2. Yeah, still NDAs. So I worked on something else for Funimation that I'm really excited about. Working on something for Disney that every time I thought it was dead is not dead, so I'm really excited about that too. Here's another tip, folks. Working in anime, you will see the fruits of your labor usually very quickly. Usually, not always. Working in animation or video games is the exact opposite. It can take between 3 or 7 years for development. So if you want to work on those parts of the industry, you're going to have a lot of patience. So also you have to learn to keep your mouth shut for a very long time.
Yes. All right, so now we come to our last question. Any Facebook, Twitter, or any other social media for the fans to get a hold of you?
Yeah, feel free. I do have a website, www.debcrane.com, but it's as ever a work in progress. Mostly because as a writer, I don't know how to describe myself. But you can also find me on Twitter. My handle is Deb_Crane. And if you're not sure which Deb Crane, because there's a lot of Deborah Cranes out there, just look for the one that the official Sailor Moon North America account follows, and that's me.
That helps.
So yeah, I'm not as active on Twitter as I like to be, but that's because I'm usually in Writer Cave and, people don't engage with me. So engage with me, guys. Like talk to me, ask me your questions. So you'll usually get a way longer answer than 144 characters. So.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for, giving us the time doing this interview. We all appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also want to thank our fans, who just tuned in for this episode of the Ohio Guys. Thank you all. I'll be tuning out now. I'm Christian Ocampo.
Thank you so much for having me, Ohio Guys. I really, really loved it. Thank you, Christian. You were a great host.
You were a great guest. All right.
Thank you.
Signing off now. Bye, everyone.